Welcome, everyone. Today, I'd like to talk about one of the core principles of women leaders community, think bigger. There has been several times in my career that I was going through extremely stressful time. Sometimes it was because of workaholic leader. Sometimes it was because of leaders who don't keep their promises. Sometimes it's because of leaders who doesn't really understand my field and keep asking me to do the wrong things. And one time, it was because of politics, lies, and betrayals, really made me feel like I was in a movie. An earlier part of those challenges was even more difficult than later part because the earlier times, the only options was finding another role, either in the same company or outside. But it all takes time. It all takes time and effort and a little bit of luck. And I had to do this with all the stressful work environment at the same time, which was really challenging. So I felt like I was stuck in those situations and there's no way out. And sometimes I felt like I may die here before I be able to get out. And one day my husband said, if things are so bad, you can quit and look for another job. We can survive it. When I heard it, it made sense. Yes, we can do it. But the thought never came to me before. And now that I have another option that I can always quit with the same level of stress, enduring it was easier because if I feel like this is too much, I can always quit. At the end, I never quit a job without the next job lined up. But having another option made a huge difference. Thinking bigger is something like that. It's not just about be ambitious, wanting bigger and larger things. It's about having more options. You may or may not using those options, but having more options does help. Most of the times we look at very narrow scope of the things and trying to find solutions in there. But when we expand the scope, suddenly we see all these options that we didn't see before. Again, we may not need all these options, but some of the options will really make it easier for you to go through it. And sometimes that option is actually easier and simpler to solve your problem. And here are some ways to think bigger. First is think really thoroughly and write it down. I was a data scientist, and often we dealt with legacy databases. And sometimes we wanted to improve those databases and data processes to help our job to be more efficient. And we write down all the things we can do, and we started to work on it. But oftentimes, those data and processes are so intertwined and messy, it's actually quite a big project. And sometimes it's actually easier to rewrite everything from scratch. Of course, when you hear it, it sounds a lot more daunting, a lot more bigger project than optimizing and improving existing system that sounds smaller and simpler. But sometimes actually it's the other way around. But if you don't have that option, you don't really get that opportunity to consider that. So write it down, all of those options, because our brain does some kind of filtering before even bring up those ideas to us. When we are just thinking, like, what are the options we have? Some of the options may come up, and then our brain said, nah, this is not a good idea. Nah, this is not possible. And already filter them and don't bring it up to us. But when we are actually write it down and trying to be very logical, then we will find those options. And we will still think that first initial feeling that, oh, this is impossible. Challenge them. Ask, why is it impossible? What if it's possible? And what can we do to make it possible? Continuing with my example, the biggest fear of quitting your job before the next job lined up is the money. I see this from other people too. They are saying, I cannot quit, I don't have money. And I asked them, how much money do you actually need and how much savings do you already have? And literally all of them have their money savings, but they are too afraid of taking that risk. I mean, it's understandable because we don't know how long it'll take. It may take 2 months, it may take 6 months, but who knows, it may take even longer. Because of that uncertainty, it's really hard for people to take the chance. And I get that. But at the same time, if you actually think about how much savings you have, how much money you actually need for those times, more frequent than you think, that people will find it actually doable. So people discard some of the options that's available to you, not because of the actual reason, like I don't have money, but because of the fear that I may run into a problem. Of course, it's a delicate thing. So I'm not going to say that you should just quit and look for another job. But this is something you can think about it. Is it really impossible for you right now? Or something you just have fear because of the uncertainty? So question everything. Question even the obvious things that you feel like you don't have to explain. Almost like imagine you're alien just landed on Earth. So you have no idea about the norms and what is custom, what is the normal things that people do here. Ask everything. Why do you have to breathe? Why do you have to eat through your mouth? Ask everything, just like an alien. And one of the key things about creating more options is be creative. Expose yourself to something unfamiliar so your brain, like neural network, connect to things which was never connected before. And that's when we have creativity. And that's when we started to see the options that we didn't see before. And there are many ways of you can do that. Go to places you never visited before, read a book in a genre that you don't usually read, and go to a museum and learning a new instrument or a new language. But the problem is those things are indirect. Sometimes they can inspire you, but when you have a problem right now, it doesn't necessarily help you to solve that problem. So when you feel like you are stuck with a specific problem and you want some more options, you want some more ideas that you couldn't come up with so far, one way you can do is thinking about one keyword, some keyword that you don't usually think about. For example, fairy. And then trying to make a connection with the fairy and your problem and trying to come up with ideas what the fairy would do. Fairy can fly, so what does it mean that your project is flying? And fairy has this magic, so what is that magic means to your project? And it sounds kind of ridiculous when you just hear the descriptions, but when you actually try it, especially with another person, then more often than you think, you come up with the new ideas that you didn't think about. And those keywords can be anything, but it has to be something you don't usually think about. It could be dinosaurs, it could be Antarctica, it could be, I don't know, usually something you don't think about. So that's the hard part. And you can ask your children what's the one thing that comes to your mind. And oftentimes that's something you don't usually think about. So it's a good keywords that you can use. And as an extension to being creative, to something scary. I'm not talking about extremely scary thing like you have to do bungee jumping or skydiving, but something that you want to do, you want to do better, you want to try, but a little scary, and make one step that you can do. For example, I'm an extreme introvert and I don't like to talk to strangers that I run into on the street. But one day I decided I want to try to break it. So I decided every time I run into someone, I'll go talk to them. It was extremely scary, but I saw this woman with a mountain bike. So I approached her and I asked her if I want to do mountain biking. Is it something I can do by myself or if I need to learn from somewhere? And she gave me really weird look and say, you should join some group. And then she just walked away. So it was not the best experience. Like some people may say, actually, it was really nice. They were very kind. Not necessarily. The other people I talked to were very nice and kind, but My point is, it doesn't always have the best kind of result, but still, the thing is, I didn't die. And repeatedly doing this for a few weeks made me feel much more easier to address to strangers because those are the small fear that you can overcome because I made it in a size that it's not too overwhelming, but it is uncomfortable enough. So try to think about what is something that you can do to make you a little bit out of your comfort zone and push yourself. Thinking bigger is not about wanting much bigger things and larger things. It's about having more options. Being really thorough with your options and questioning everything and be creative and push yourself to out of your comfort zone will really help you to create your own path, not just path that's given to you. So, what's the one thing that you will think bigger?